Hold on a minute, Mr. Moore there. Could I just interrupt you? Talking of playing to the whistle, which you said with great authority, I want to explain to the viewers that you have this week passed your Class 3 refereeing exam, so you're entitled to say something about refereeing. But the boys in the studio have sort of clubbed together and produced this for you. There are two lovely linesman's flags for you to play with, and the most fearsome-looking whistle holder I've ever seen. I don't know whether there's a hint that you might do something else with that bit of rope, but on the end, a whistle that nobody's going to hear. And finally, the most important thing, the Naughty Boys book on the end of that long chain and a pencil. And I look in the book, of course, and I see Cautions, J. Hill 1. Thank you very much indeed for that. But we have got a lovely photograph of Brian blowing his whistle. Look at the way those lips are pursed there. Great authority. And what player would dare to disregard that finger? I wouldn't, certainly. But anyway, congratulations, Brian, on that success in passing referee Class 3.
Well, my thanks, of course, to the lads on the floor for those presents. One little thing that I would say is that I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a 6-week course, which I did enjoy. And really, anyone who wants to get involved with referees' courses, it's a good way of getting into the game. And, of course, at the junior level, they are desperate for referees, so see what you can do about that. But now, what about the situation now with this clamp down by referees, the situation in the game at the moment with over 100 bookings in the last week? With Jimmy Hill here, a man really in a unique position because former chairman of the PFA, a manager as well, so really knows all aspects of the game, and yet you can be totally unbiased about the whole thing, Jimmy. What's your view on the situation as it stands now?
Well, I think, looking back, of course, the league made a very bad mistake in not consulting players and referees and holding a meeting, and managers as well, to give them the chance to assimilate all the changes or the changes of emphasis that they were trying to make in the application of the laws. No question about that, that was a bad mistake, and the league should repair that as soon as possible. I think where they went wrong is not understanding how difficult it is for a player on the field to change one tiny habit. I mean, you can train players at a movement for 9 months and get them to do it once on the field, you feel you've had some success. In the heat of the moment, an athlete can remember very little.
So what are the priorities there in terms of change that you want to get through to the players?
What I would like to see, first of all, is for the players to give the league time to repair that mistake. There's no question about it. A meeting has to be held, and I would like to see that meeting held over days, not weeks, because for no reason at all, the game has got itself a lot of bad publicity. I mean, we should be sitting on top of the world at the moment. We're winning in Europe. Our teams are winning in Europe. We're coming up for another World Cup in a year or so, where we're bound to have a chance of winning it again. Why should we suddenly commit harikari in this particular way? It's very, very sad, but it's not irreparable. Yeah. I mean, I think if strong action is taken now, if the players and the managers and the league and the referees get together, which shouldn't, I know it's difficult, but it's possible, I'm quite sure that we will be able to make some improvements. But they should do it 1 point at a time. 8 or 9 points were made, 8 or 9 different emphases on the laws that have been tried to be done. If they had just said, well, we're going to cut out violence, we're going to make a special attempt to cut out violence, let's work at that for this season, then that may have worked.
I've had several letters this week, some of them from referees, about that Spurs penalty against Crystal Palace last Saturday. It seemed that, to me, at any rate, that the referee David Smith did the right thing in delaying his decision to give Spurs the best possible advantage from it. Let me have my say again, and after we've heard that, Jimmy Hill.
Peters, it goes in, down he goes, and that surely has got to be a penalty, and it is a penalty. That was a very good piece of refereeing. In fact, Mr. Smith delaying that decision.
Well, I don't always agree what Brian has to say about what happens on the football field, but on this occasion I not only defend him, I commend him, because referee Smith applied the spirit of the law as against the letter of the law, and as a referee has that discretion on the field, I like to see it done. We have a perfect example this week of where the opposite thing happened. In Ireland, where the Football League were playing, a referee blew for a penalty when the ball went in the net almost at the same moment, and he insisted that Peter Osgood took the penalty, although the ball in fact had gone in the net. Here you can see the header going towards goal, blatant handball with both hands, and almost instantaneously there, Osgood has the ball in the net. Now, if Osgood had missed this penalty coming up, that defender would have gained by his action in breaking the laws of the game. As it happened, Osgood, who was the man who put it in the first case, put it in the second case too, so justice was done. But when a referee applies the spirit of the law in instances like these, I think he's making a double attempt to ensure that justice is done.
And a number from Chelsea fans this week directed very fiercely at Jimmy Hill after his remarks about Ron Harris's tackle on Ray Evans in last week's Chelsea-Spurs match. N.G. Martin of 44 Percival Road, Feltham in Middlesex, wants to see Jimmy Hill banned from Stamford Bridge. But Mr. J.A. Parfitt of 70 Parade Mansions, Hendon, London NW4, takes a rather more moderate and I think more constructive view of it all. Along with several others, he asked why we didn't show the Mike England foul on Peter Osgood in the same match in slow motion as we did the Ron Harris foul. Remember, Jimmy Hill gave Mike England the benefit of the doubt. Well, Jimmy, what about it?
Well, there was nothing sinister, Mr. Parfitt, in not showing that in slow motion. In fact, we can put that right now and have a look at Mike England tackling Peter Osgood when I said that he could have been given the benefit of the doubt in that he didn't deliberately go to kick Osgood in that situation. What I think he did was to reach through for the ball. It's a sort of typical kind of Mike England tackle. Here it is coming up now. You can see Osgood, the ball rolls away from him, and then England makes his challenge. You can see the foot coming past his feet there. He does bring him down very heavily, but my point about that was one could easily have argued that he was in fact going for the ball. I don't withdraw, despite the fact that Mr. Martin doesn't want to see me at Chelsea again. I can't withdraw anything that I said about Ron Harris's tackle.
On the question of fouls, name takes, sendings off and so on, F. Aldridge of Tadworth in Surrey says, was Jimmy Hill ever sent off or had his name taken during his playing career?
Well, in fact, I had my name taken once, which was in the match at Barnsley when Fulham got promotion, actually. They beat Barnsley 4-2. The referee was Mr. Kelly. At the time, I was chairman of the Players' Union, and I had my name taken for showing dissent. I'd had 2 foul throws given against me, and I was standing on the line ready to take a 3rd throw, and I asked Mr. Kelly what it was that I was doing wrong. He took that as being heavy sarcasm, and he took my name. In fact, I did appeal to the FA. I wrote a very long letter, because in those days you weren't allowed to appeal against a name take. I wrote the long letter, and I never got a reply. So really, it was only once in 12 years, and I don't really know whether I had my name taken or not.
It seems that we upended a hornet's nest last week when Jimmy advocated a new system for referees and linesmen when penalties were being taken. If you remember, Jimmy suggested that the referee stood there looking at the goalkeeper's feet to see if they moved. A linesman stood there to watch for encroachment. But we've had a whole host of letters, in fact. A. Curtis of 59 Great Gregory Basildon, Essex. 13-year-old Master T. Goff of 60 Honeysuckle Road, Bassett, Southampton, Hampshire. And L. Thurgood of 10 Burley Gardens, Ashford, Middlesex were among a lot of them, who said that if in fact the ball hit the crossbar, post or was punched out, the linesman there would be interfering with play. What about it, Jim?
Well, if it makes everybody happy, he could move outside the area a couple of yards back into that position. But all he's got to do, once he's seen the decision there, whether players have encroached, is just to withdraw quietly to that position on the touchline. I don't accept that he's in any more chance of interfering with play there. In fact, he's got a lot less than a referee does in the normal course of a game.
But I was talking to Keith Walker, the league referee, and he said that if in fact the referee's standing there, he couldn't tell to the last degree whether the ball crosses the line if it's half parried by a goalkeeper.
Well, I don't quite agree with that. I know that's a perfect position to see, and this is almost a perfect position to see, but think how often you have disputes that whether the ball crosses the line or not, once in a lifetime. But the important thing to see justice is done on things that happen every time a penalty kick is taken is whether the goalkeeper takes advantage of the fact that referees and linesmen find it difficult to decide and moves his feet before the ball is kicked.
Well, I think the thing is that perhaps neither system is absolutely perfect, but what we have emphasised is just the difficulties the referees do face when penalties are being taken, and maybe we've opened up a whole new area for discussion there. Yes, it was a match that went cold and lost its momentum after the hold-up for the injured linesman, but now it's time to meet the emergency linesman to tell us how it all happened and the lessons that maybe he learned from it all. Jimmy, how did it happen in the first place?
Well, contrary to what my friends would tell me, I didn't rush down straight away and kick all the other potential linesmen out of the way in the corridor. I waited in pursuit for 5 minutes, and it occurred to me then that they weren't going to get a linesman of any quality, and it was such a good game up until then. I thought, well, it would be a shame if a chap came down with his knees knocking from the crowd and was put under pressure and maybe destroy the game. So I went down and said, if you can't find anybody, a recognised, qualified and experienced official, then I'd be happy to have a go.
What were they saying to you here?
Well, that's what I was saying to Pat Partridge. He said to me, you'll do me. And then I went rushing in there to get the emergency kit. I'm not too sure I like the little smile on Bertie Mee's face, which you'll see in a moment, as if he thought there was going to be something humorous happening after this moment, or he thought maybe, as a Londoner, I'd favour Arsenal. But I was determined to give both teams equal justice. And now I'm coming out in the emergency kit there. In fact, those shoes that I've got, I had to do it because the game had already been delayed long enough, and they were size 8, and I was in agony really running until half-time because I take size 10, and it wasn't until then that I got the proper pair of boots to do the job. Pat Partridge thought very quickly, I thought, at this point, because he brought the captains together and appealed to their common sense and good nature, really, to give me a fair crack at the whip. You can see him in a moment. There he is, talking to Tommy Smith. Frank McIntosh, in his usual smiling fashion, is thoroughly enjoying the whole scene. But he's saying there, look, I'm going to lean nearer Jimmy's diagonal and try to take most of the decisions, so that we don't put him under too much pressure. So I want you to cooperate, and you can see Frank nodding there, by not disputing decisions, particularly those that Jimmy gives.
How did the players, in fact, react to your decisions?
Well, they laughed then, but it didn't take them long to get serious. There were a couple of occasions when there were fierce arguments. I mean, John Radford, when I gave a ball out of play, Alan Ball, who argues about other people's decisions, things not concerned with him. There was one moment with John Roberts where I gave a throw-in against him, and he shouted at me, and I said, "I'm absolutely certain, John." And he smiled, a big smile came on his face, and he accepted it straight away.
You think it helped to know the players?
I'm positive it helped to know the players, because there was a corner. I was right on hand at a corner which Liverpool or Arsenal were taking, and Steve Highway began to encroach. He began to get within 10 yards. And I said to him, 10 yards, Steve. And he looked just like that for a moment and came back to 10 yards range. So it stopped me having to give a decision, really.
Do you see there the possibility that linesmen would be better advised to get closer to players, possibly?
I'm absolutely certain that if they were more friendly, if they were able to spend more time close to players, and managers for that matter, it would be to their advantage. It's harder to have an argument with a friend than it is with an enemy.
Briefly, what about the crowd, Jim?
Oh, the crowd were pretty good. They gave me a bit of stick to start with, which was natural. But I felt to be an efficient linesman, as soon as possible, I had to sort of fade into the backcloth. I wasn't there to entertain, I was there to do a job of work. And really, I wanted them to forget me quickly. But there was one lovely moment when, in the second half, I heard a young voice from the back say, "Hey, Jim, Fulham's winning."
Jim, that's great. It was nice to see you there with the flag and all, and Fulham, of course, didn't win in the end. They got just 1 point. Last week's Coventry-Manchester City match provoked quite a mailbag for us. G. Isom, chairman of the Bristol branch of the Referees Association, believes that Rodney Marsh was offside before he scored Manchester City's first goal.
Well, Mr. Isom, I believe so too when I first saw it. But on closer inspection, I think you'll agree with me that he was clearly onside. As the ball bounces back then, this was the picture we saw to start with, and he looks offside. But now look to right of the picture and you'll see Chris Catlin, the Coventry fullback, slow coming off his line, slow to play him offside, and that's why it was a fair goal.
Well, also in that game, Alan Casey of 13 Wolsey Avenue, Walthamstow, London E17, claims that when Willie Carr was booked, he was retaliating because Rodney Marsh, far from rubbing Carr's head in a sporting fashion as it seemed, actually twisted the Coventry player's ear. Well, was that something we missed last week, or did we?
I think Carr's name was taken for the push that came first. There's the push, and that's why his name was taken. Rodney doesn't like it. He sprawls on the ground. Obviously, he's very annoyed, and he wants to get his revenge, but you can't do it in full view of the referee unless you disguise it by a supposed friendly gesture. What better than a pat on the head, which turns into a strong pull of the hair as you see Carr's head go back. It's very frustrating when you're annoyed. That's Rodney's way of getting out of those frustrating circumstances.
And now thanks then for Alan Casey for picking it up for us.